you mentioned We the Living as one of the books that you like of hers the most, but can we stay in the mythic register with
Yeah.
The Fountainhead and
Yeah.
Atlas Shrugged? What to you are some sort of memorable, inspiring moments, insightful moments from those books, that maybe scenes or ideas that you take away from them that are important for people to understand?
Yeah. So The Fountainhead is this story of a struggling architect, Howard Rourke, and she kind of follows his life and his career. And the message is really, it's a version of To Thine Own Self Be True, right? And Rourke's designs are too avant garde. Nobody appreciates him. And he just keeps doing what he wants to do and is just focused on his own visions, his own genius. I think that's been really inspiring to kind of creators of all types. I think it's fairly unrealistic as a portrait of human achievement, but it's an aspirational idea. I mean, one phrase that comes to mind is there's a character, I forget which one, who is in some sort of adversarial relationship with Howard Rourke and says something to him like, well, Mr. Rourke, what do you think of me? And Rourke says, I don't think of you. And that to Rand was the ideal. You're not thinking of other people. You're an island unto yourself. You're focused on your own goals, your own capacities, and you're not doing it to impress other people or to be better than other people or to dominate other people. You're doing it because you're sort of expressing your inner soul in a way. So that has been very captivating to so many. And The Fountainhead is one of those books we talked about that causes, people read it and they make changes in their life or they feel called to their higher self.
And I think there's also the scene where Rourke, with the dean of architecture at school, that's speaking to what you're saying. I think to me is inspiring. So this is the dean of architecture that expels Rourke, and it brings him into a meeting thinking Rourke will plead for a second chance. And the dean says that Rourke's work is contrary to every principle we have tried to teach you, contrary to all established precedents and traditions of art. Do you mean to tell me that you're thinking seriously of building that way when and if you are an architect? And then in a gangster-like way, Rourke says yes. And then the dean asks, my dear fellow, who will let you? And Rourke replies, that's not the point. The point is, who will stop me?
Yes. I mean, Rand's coming from communist Russia, but it has a bit of the don't mess with Texas flavor. I might say it. That really resonates with this idea of anyone who's felt like they're, fighting the powers that be. It's interesting. I thought you might be going to the quote where he says something like, I inherit no tradition. I stand at the beginning of one.
Yeah.
And I really think Rand's thinking about herself, when she says that she inherits nothing. She stands at the start. But, The Fountainhead comes out in the middle of World War II, and it's not expected. Rand is an unknown writer. This is kind of a strange book. It's, classic story. It's turned down by 12 publishers before one takes a chance on it. And Rand really loved this story. The editor who read it said, this book is great. And his boss said no. And he said, if you don't take this book, I'm quitting, And so she idolized him for doing that. So they print it and it becomes a bestseller just through word of mouth. So it's not advertised, it gets one good book review, but people tell each other how much they like this book, and it keeps printing and selling out printings. It's made into a movie. And so it lands in this time when Americans are engaged in this great collective endeavor of World War II. They're making all kinds of sacrifices for the collective. And I think paradoxically, as they do that, they're drawn to this vision of someone who doesn't have to compromise at all, who is leading their life exactly as they want to. Meanwhile, they might be sleeping on an ocean liner because they've been drafted to fight in this war. And they're reading The Fountainhead and they're feeling better about themselves. And so it's also really interesting. The Fountainhead is hugely popular in India, which is fascinating. And, talk to people about this, and they basically say, this book comes like a breath of fresh air into a very traditional and conformist culture, and people just latch onto it and they love it, and it gives them that feeling of freedom and possibility that they're hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a book. Atlas Shrugged can be a bit of that too, but it's more of the philosophy, objectivism, and the details and the nuance of that seeps into Atlas Shrugged. The Fountainhead is very much like a thing that makes you change the path of your life.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful to see that books can have that power.
And, Rand knew that she was doing that, and she knew what she was doing. This wasn't an accident. And people say, "Oh, she's a bad writer. Oh, her characters are so heavy-handed." She started as a screenwriter. She started as someone who analyzed films for movie studios. She knew exactly how to manipulate plot and character and drama. And she also knew that she was writing. People say, "Oh, Rand is for, adolescents. Adolescent teenagers love Rand." And that's kind of who she was writing for. And she said, "I'm writing for people as they start out on their life and they're thinking about who they want to be." So she's not writing, for the weary middle-aged. She's writing for the young who are looking for inspiration.
People say that to me sometimes about certain books like Rand, but also about The Alchemist. I know a lot of people for whom The Alchemist, and they're adults and they're brilliant people, The Alchemist changed their life. And the same can be said about The Fountainhead.
Yeah.
I sometimes get criticized for using words that are too simple. I think simple words can have power, and the cliche thing sometimes needs to be said, and sometimes, if effectively, needs to be said in an over the top way in the mythic register, because that's the thing that resonates with us.
Yeah.
Because we are like heroes of our own story, and
Yeah.
we need to hear that message sometimes to take the bold step, to take the risk, to take the leap.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing, she knew she was doing kind of propaganda in a way. She was like, "I'm doing pro-capitalist propaganda." And she has a degree from the University of Leningrad. She's raised up in Soviet Russia. She said, "We need to present the case for the other side in the same way." And that's what she did.